before we start, look where I am. Is this crazy? This is not a painting. This is real. And yesterday I went over these mountains in a helicopter, those big mountains back there. And I didn't want to go because I don't like helicopters. And my wife kept telling me that I tell people all the time to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and basically pulled a me on me and forced me into this helicopter. But anyway, I'm in New Zealand. I'm in New Zealand. Yes, I should have done a multiple choice, but I'm in New Zealand. When my wife sold Spanx, one of the reasons why she sold her company, she wanted to take some time to travel. And so this is a year that we're doing a bunch of travel, and this is our first trip. We're in New Zealand. So I'm taking a lot of pictures. Fun fact about pictures, the average person, there'll be a trillion and a half pictures taken this year. The average person takes about 1,000 pictures a year. I think I took 1,000 yesterday, and I'll be sure to share them on Instagram. Anyway, quick story about pictures while people jump in, and then we will get going on this planning session here. Because I'm in New Zealand, by the way, that's the reason why we changed the time of this call. So I apologize for the change in the time and the confusion. But a couple of years ago, I was at a dinner party, and they went around the table. This is a great thing for you guys to do at home or with friends. But they went around the table and they asked everybody to pick 3 people that were alive that they wanted to have dinner with, which is not an easy exercise, by the way. And they went around the room. There were 12 of us, and I think I went last. And they were asking everybody, and you get all the regulars, you know, Warren Buffett, Michelle Obama. There were a couple of actors in there, but when it came to me, all 3 of mine, true story, were rappers. And the reason was I wanted to meet the 3 people that really changed the trajectory of my life as a kid in New York growing up, changed it as a teenager, that changed the trajectory of my life. So after the dinner, I invited the 10 kind of most influential artists in my life as a kid growing up to New York to dinner, and they all came. And which was really cool. And people asked me, like, well, how did you get those guys to come? You know, like, what'd you do? And I'm like, I asked them. I made it happen. How did you get to New Zealand? I made it happen. 2024 is the year that if you want something to happen, you have to make it happen. We've been taught our whole life, well, a lot of our life, oh, when opportunity knocks, grab it. That's true. But a lot of times you have to create your own opportunity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. I want to welcome everybody here that's joining from the Roundtable. The Roundtable is a coaching program that I have. This is not the kind of the official kickoff call. The official kickoff call for that coaching program is going to be on the 22nd, where we'll cover everything from best practices and how to get the most out of the app, what to expect throughout the year, what our webinars and guest speakers are going to look like. That's all going to happen on the 22nd. That's not this call, but I want to welcome everybody here from the Roundtable. And I want to welcome everybody here that's joining just to be here for How to Plan an Amazing Year webinar. Welcome as well. For those that don't know me, I'm Jesse Itzler. And for those in the Roundtable, the first official kind of coaching call will be on February 19th. And that's a goal setting, how to set and finish big goals. And then we'll have 9 other live calls throughout the year, as well as guest speakers, workshops, etc. So welcome everybody. Okay, here we go. So we're getting here. This call will be about 45 minutes. I'll open it up for Q&A after. And I've broken this call into really 4 different parts, with the Q&A 5 different parts. So the first part that we're going to talk about, and by the way, this is not a business planning call. I plan my business separate than I plan my personal life. We'll do that at a separate time. This is a personal planning call for 2024. At the end of this call, I hope that everybody leaves with the ability to write their own plan, to execute their own plan, and enthusiasm around 2024 and their plan. I don't care what 2023 looked like. Hope you had a great year, but if you didn't, it doesn't matter. What I care about is from here till the end of New Year's on 2024, that you guys can squeeze the most out of this year as possible. And it's a year that you're excited about. I covered some of this in my last webinar, but some of it might be repetitive, but I'll also go a little deeper into a lot of the things that we talked about. This is the exact way that I plan my year. I broke it up into 5 categories. So the first category thing I'm going to talk about is just getting you guys to understand what it is you actually want, which is really important. The second thing is I'm going to talk about and help you identify what it is you need to fix. It's very hard to have a great year if you have something that's really broken going on in your life. The third thing is I'm going to go through my planning system that anyone can do, very simple. The fourth thing is I'm going to show you how to plan it, how to put it on your calendar, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So that will be what we're going to cover. We're going to do it in about 45 minutes. And if I miss anything, hello from Maine. If I miss anything, then you can ask me in the Q&A. We'll have a process that you can do that. If my kids get up in the middle, again, it's 6 a.m. here. I really didn't sleep last night. We'll cover it then. Before we get into the what you want, the first thing I want to talk about, I mentioned briefly how many pictures are taken every year. I've been taking pictures every time that I leave on a trip and I go by myself. I take a picture of myself with my kids, like individually. And it's like a superstition. I'll track them down. I'll be like, Laser, let me take a picture, Tepper. And I just have it. And every time I go to my parents' house, this is like going on for like, I would say the last 15 years. I take a picture when I leave with my mom and then an individual picture with my dad. It's just something that I do. The last trip that I was at, get emotional here. The last trip that I was at with my mom's getting older. I'm leaving. So I'm like, Mom, let's grab a picture. And then I stop. And I didn't want to take the picture because I didn't want it to be the last picture that I ever took with my mom. I didn't want to take a picture and be like, this is the last picture that I took with my mom. So I just didn't take the picture. And as we go into 2024, I'm going into 2024 with last picture energy. I'm approaching everything like this is my last trip to New Zealand. You know, I don't know if I'm ever going to get back. You know, this is one of the last years that I'm going to have family dinner before my son goes to college. This is my last year they're going to play third grade football. This is the last ski trip of the year. Like I'm going into it with an energy that I'm super present and excited because God, man, what an opportunity for me to be in New Zealand. Yesterday, I did something with my family that was super scary. And we went on this like this rock climbing thing. I was so freaked out. My legs were shaking. And I pulled myself back and I'm like, man, this is like an opportunity, you know? I just want you guys to go into this year with last picture energy. Seriously, like attack what you're doing. You want to have dinner with your favorite artist, call them, make it happen. You want to go on a trip to New Zealand, make it happen. It's not going to magically happen for you. And the enthusiasm that we approach, like I can tell you guys, you know, give you guys tips and strategies, but the enthusiasm, the will to make it happen, the decision to put everything into what you're doing is a separator. And when you show up with a positive enthusiasm, with like, man, I'm so excited. I don't know what's going to happen to me. You know, nothing is guaranteed energy, you know, you show up differently. And there's 2 ways to show up: with passion, enthusiasm, great energy, great vibes, or doesn't work. It just doesn't work as well. So I'm going to it with last picture energy, man. You know, the hugs are a little deeper this year. The effort's a little bit more this year. All right, enough of that. All right, I want to give you guys 2 things to think about before we get into the planning system. So the first thing I want to think about is I want to dig a little deep into just identifying what it is you want. I have a friend of mine, let's just call him Brian. Brian came to me almost about 8 months ago, and he was in a tough spot. And I said to him, And he's mid-50s. I said to him, I said, Bri, what's going on, man? He told me all this stuff. I said, if I wired you, another good exercise, if I wired you $10 million, what would you do with it? And he's like, oh, that's easy. I would move to California. My dream is to move to California. I said, Brian, nobody's wiring you $10 million, man. If you want to move to California, save for 6 months, make the plans, make the decision, call an audible, and move to California. And if you don't like it, move back. But no one's wiring you $10 million. And I started realizing that a lot of things that people want, like in their dream, I have a bucket list of things that I want to do, and I drop the B in that bucket, and I add an F, and I have an F it list and a it list. A lot of things on your list of that what you want to do, like Brian, his dream to move to California, you could probably do now. You might not think you can. You might not be the right time. It's not the right time to go to New Zealand. It's not the right time to call up your people and say you want to have a dinner. It's never the right time. But a lot of things that you could do right now. So my question for you is, before you go into 2024, I think it's really important to dig into a little bit of like what it is that you want. Like you work 40, 50-hour weeks. What are you playing for? What is it that you want? If someone wired you $10 million, do you know with clarity like what you would do with the money? Do you know what you what your dream is and what you want? I love taking out a piece of paper, and this is an exercise you can do at the end of this call, and write down like, you know, in a dream scenario, what is it that you want? Like, what do you want out of this life? Like, if you had the $10 million, what would you do with it? How would you spend the money? Because if you don't dream about it and think about it, how are you gonna get there? How are you gonna know what to do when you get there? So when I was 21 years old, I had 3 things on my dream list. I wanted to have a swimming pool. I love swimming, but I hated swimming in public pools. I wanted to have enough money. Yeah, put it in the chat room. Olga would travel to the Blue Zones, bucket list family adventures. Light up the chat for me. I wanted 3 things when I was 21. I wanted to be able to have my own swimming pool, have enough money that I could have my own. What a dream, man. I could jump in my own swimming pool. I'd have to go wait online and jump. No. The second thing is I wanted to have a land that I could grow my own fruit. I love fruit. If I could have a little garden that I could grow my own fruit and vegetables, like that would just be incredible. And the third thing I wanted to make enough money that I could take a 2-week vacation. That was it. If I could work my butt off, but for 2 weeks I could go to New Zealand or do something, that was my dream. And I put it down on a piece of paper. It didn't happen in year 1. I slept on a lot of couches before it happened. But eventually it happened. I got a swimming pool. I was able to take some vacations. I grew this. And then I made a new list. And on my new list, I had 2 things. I wanted an RV and I wanted a farm. And I had that on my list, I'd say for 7 years, maybe even more than 7 years. But I had a list. I was working towards something. I had an idea of what I wanted. You know, it wasn't just like, oh man, work stinks. Like, get out of that and get into dream mode and get into like digging into like what you really want. And last year 2 years ago, I bought an RV and a farm. And I might've been able to do it a little earlier. It just wasn't like, but I never lost track of what it was that I wanted. You know, I needed a family first before I could do that. I needed other things to happen first. I needed to free up a little time first, but I had a vision. So I really encourage everybody, just before we get even into anything about planning next year, to just think about like, what would you do with $1 million, with $10 million? What are you playing for? What's on your wish list, your life wish list? And just write it down. That's step 1 is identifying what you want. The second thing I wanted you guys to think about before we get into the nuts and bolts and how to plan is I did a TED Talk a couple of years ago. It's called the Happiness Meter. By the way, up until I walked on the stage for the TED Talk, I was not sure exactly what I was going to do. I changed my theme 15 times, and I'm going to do another one because I regret that this was the topic I chose to do for a variety of reasons. But I was so nervous. Anyway, so this is the exercise to help figure out what it is you need to fix. So I want everyone to do this real quick. Again, something to think about. You have what I want and what I need to fix. What I need to fix is what we're going to do. Imagine you had a blender, and in that blender, you put in all the different things that are going on in your life right now, all the categories, like your health, your work, your relationships, everything going on in your life. It goes in a blender and you mix it all up. And on a scale of 1 to 10, when you mix everything up on your life meter, with happiness being number 10, the Dalai Lama, number 10 is pure bliss, and number 1 is rock bottom. Rock bottom. So on a 1 to 10, when you mix it all up, where are you in your life? What's the number that comes into your head in your life? You don't have to put it in the chat room, but everyone should have a number. If you want to share the number, you can put it up in the chat. I would be curious. Let me see if I can pull the chat up. What was your number on a 1 to 10? 9, 8, 7, 7, a lot of 7s, 8s, good. 6.5, not bad. 7, 7, 5. Don't be embarrassed. There's no 2. A lot of 7s. I'm going to average this out. 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm going to help you guys with this. Maybe not on this call, but I can help you guys with this. Thank you guys for sharing that. That's vulnerable, and I love it. So I'm seeing a lot of 7s and 8s. So what's interesting about this is 7 or 8 is amazing, but if my son or daughter comes home with a 70 on a test, a 70, 7 out of 10 is a 70, that's a C minus, maybe a D. 70 is a D. An 8 is a B minus on a test in the most important category really of your life, like your overall happiness. And what I love about this drill is immediately when I said that, 2 or 3 things should have popped into your head that immediately took you from a 10 down. So I don't know, did that happen to you guys? Did that happen to you? Like when the 2 or 3 things like, oh, my money's not good, my relationship's not good, or my health isn't good, or my home life isn't good, or, I'm not being a great parent. Like the 2 or 3 things happen right away, like everything else got eliminated. Those are the 2 or 3 things that you have to work on. It's so simple. And that's what I love about that. It brings it right to the front. Forget 5 hours of therapy. You should have just identified it right there, exactly what is bringing you down. Whatever those 2 or 3 things are, even if you were a 9, you probably had something that showed up. Did that happen to everybody, by the way? I'm having a little bit hard time with my chat, but I have to click it on to see it. Yes. Okay, there we go. I'm going to leave the chat up. Whatever those 2, I'm glad. Whatever those 2 or 3 things are, and maybe there were more. And by the way, usually it's relationships, it's money, or it's your health. So money and marriage, relationships, money. It's always the same 3 things. It's like humans, you can simplify it into 3 categories usually. Those are the things you have to work on. Those are the 3 things you have to work on. This year, as part of my relationship that I'm working on too, it's always a work in progress, and it evolves when your kids have more issues and they get older. My wife told me that I've been on my phone too much. I don't go to an office. So like, this is my office. So I'm like, well, I'm defending myself. I'm like, well, Sara, this is my office. Like, I don't go. Imagine if I was in an office from 8 in the morning to 6 at night. Like, you wouldn't even see me. So what's the big deal if I'm on a phone? And that argument didn't work. So to work on that, it's not going to magically get better. My wife said to me, like, we're putting parameters, like 7 o'clock, you're shutting it down. We actually have a box in our bedroom that says phone, and I deposit it in the phone, and it's helped. The point is, you got to work on the things that are broken. Like, they're not, you could have the best plan, the greatest year, hit all your goals. But if you have these 3 things or 2 or 3 things that are dragging you down, you're just not going to have a great year, as great a year as you can. And it's not going to get better. It usually just gets worse. And I avoid conflict. I don't like addressing issues that are hard to address. So what do? I try to just add more things on my plate that I love to do. And it's a great recipe for building a great life resume. It's a terrible recipe for fixing, being solution driven to things that are broken. So once you identify those things, I highly suggest that you spend a little bit of time confronting your issues. I don't have time to go into how I would do that, but yeah. So we should have a list of what it is we want, an effort list. It doesn't even have to be, it could be 2 lists, like what I want this year and what I want like in the next 5 years or 10 years, or even my dream in my life. And by the way, one thing about what I want, I didn't say like, I want to own the New York Yankees. I want an airplane, like these, like, it wasn't super material, although the farm is materialistic, but that's not why I wanted the farm. The RV too. It's just like, I wanted the adventures that come with it. I wanted the experiences that come with an RV, not the RV. I wanted what the farm, I wanted that the freedom that came with it. Not like, oh, I'm on Instagram, I got a farm, I'm gonna bang my chest. I got an airplane, I'm gonna bang my chest. That's not what I wanted. So think about what it is you want, short-term, long-term, put it down. Think about what it is that's broken and think about, man, how am I gonna fix that? How am I gonna fix that? Okay? It's important. We don't spend a lot of time thinking. We just cruise. Think about what it is you want and what's broken, and put a plan or put some ideas around with last photo energy, how you want to fix it and how you want to attack the things on your list. Let's go to the third part of today's talk, my planning system. So this might be repetitive for some people, but we're going to go a little deeper into it. I'm at 12:24 Eastern, so we're right on schedule here, guys. Right on schedule. Good question. How much time a day do I spend thinking? That's what I love about live, by the way, versus doing a coaching program that has video where you can't respond, where you can't show people that you're in New Zealand. You can't talk about real-time things. So first of all, my wife schedules time to think. She actually puts on her calendar 2-day trips where she goes to like Blackberry Farm, or she'll just go on her own trip just to think. Bill Gates schedules time to think. I don't do that, but my thinking time is when I run. So I run every day or walk for an hour, roughly. Sometimes it's cumulative, 30 in the morning, 30 at night, no headphones, and I think. That's where I do my best thinking. That's where I solve my problems. That's where I get creative. So literally every day. And I ask myself so many questions. I ask myself, that's how I flush things out, by asking myself questions. Here's a great exercise for business owners here, because I know we have a lot of business owners. We'll get to the planning in a second. And I always ask my employees this too. I was consulting for a company, and I was talking to the founder, mega company, and I was saying, well, tell me what you guys do here. And I would think like they could answer that in 1 second. Oh, well, we do blah, 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 blah. I asked 45 different people on the executive committee and got 4 or 5 different answers. So I said to him a very simple question. If you're sitting on the couch of the Today Show or the morning show with Gayle King, and she says, Jesse, what is All Day Running Company? And she says, Craig Hamilton, what is blah, blah, blah? Or she says, Joseph, what does your company do? You should be able to answer that clearly in 1 second. So I always ask myself, like, okay, if I'm on an interview with Gayle King and she asks me this, how am I going to answer it? Like I ask myself questions to flush out the mission statement, to flush out my thoughts. And I do that when I run. So it might sound crazy, and I'm not saying I just posted this. You don't have to go in the Himalayas and sit on the couch, but it's important that you guys think and ask you, especially as you get older, and you ask yourself, important questions. Sauna time's a great time to do that. All right, so on to the planning system. So I'm sure everybody here knows this, but we're going to go a little deeper, as I said. But I basically do 3 things, very simple things. Everybody has their own system, but this has worked really well for me. time management things don't work great for me because when I create more time, I just put more on my plate. So it's like a spinning wheel. Like, oh, I have this great time management. I created a system that works really well for me when planning my personal, not my business, my personal year. I shared it on the Alex Sutton. Can you put the link to the webinar up that we did? So if anybody wants to revisit this in more detail, you can. But I do 3 things every year. So the first thing that I do is there's an old Japanese ritual called the misogi. And the notion around, this is how I plan, by the way. So I kind of know what I have to fix, have a loose idea of what I want, you know, in the big picture, in the small picture. And then I'm like, okay, there's an old Japanese ritual called the misogi. And the notion around the misogi is that you do one big year defining thing a year. We took the liberty to change the true definition, but from my friend Kyle Korver, he gave me this notion of a misogi. I've been doing it for years. You have one big year defining thing. So at the end of the year, if I said to, you know, Richard Set, like, you know, what did you do last year? Like, what did you do in 2017, 2019? You should be able to rattle off. In 2015, I wrote a book, Living with the Seal. 2023, I rode my bike across America. 2018, I launched 29. 2017, I lived on a monastery. You should have be able to have something to show for your hard work. All right. So you might not know what that is for 2024. And by the way, did anyone do a misogi in 2023? I'd love to see that on the chat. What was your misogi in 2023? And if you have one already for 2024, 29 and 29 is great. Put it down in the chat to give people an idea. Let's create a list right here, a working list. Another great thing about getting on a call with people is you get ideas. You get to share. That's another reason why I think it's important to be in a coaching program. You get to see wow, I'm not the only 2 on here. There's other 2s on a 1 to 10. There's other 9s. Well, what are they doing differently? You know, that's the importance of being in a program like this. We didn't even start our program yet. This is a bonus call. Okay, let's look at the Hurt 100, Mount Tremblant, Ironman, sailing trips. All this stuff is amazing. So let's stay with the misogi for a second, okay? A lot of people, so your misogi should be challenging. In a perfect world, it should be challenging. It should be something that you're not even sure that you're going to finish. It should be your anchor for the year. It should be something that you're excited about. It should be something that makes you feel accomplished. A lot of people put a trip to Italy, a trip somewhere. That's an amazing. I never use trips as misogis though, because I want to feel accomplished at the end of my misogi. So if I go to Italy or New Zealand, that's an amazing trip on my life resume. And I'm so damn glad that we did it. But I'm not leaving here unless I do something in New Zealand that makes me feel this way, with a sense of accomplishment. Family, yes. Being more worldly, yes. Having more experiences, yes. Accomplished, that's not the same feeling I get when I do 29 or 29 or run a marathon or launch a podcast or start a business or even quit smoking or whatever it is. So I try to make my misogi something that's challenging, preferably experiential, if possible. Something that really forces me to think and go outside of my comfort zone. And something that on the other side of that misogi, I'm getting something that's changing me. It's giving me some benefit that I didn't have before, whether that's courage, whether that's accomplishment, whether that's challenge. So I highly encourage everybody here to choose one big year defining thing. And by the way, if it is a trip, that is completely fine. If it is, I always wanted and I saved up and I'm doing this, that is fine. If it's New Zealand, that is fine. I'm just telling you that for me, I like it to be something that's more physical or more challenging. And but if it was the trip to New Zealand, that's fine. At the end of the year, if you're like, man, in 2024, I went to New Zealand, amazing. That could be year defining for you. But so I choose a Misogi. Here's why it's important. If anyone, by the way, can you just put in the chat room how old everybody is? I'm curious what the age group is. Although I did survey the group. Okay, look at this. So it's a little bit skewing a little older, which is great. Amazing. So let's say the average age here is 40, and you choose the Misogi. Welcome 26. Yeah, we're all in the same group here, pretty much. I'm going to tell you, remind me at the end to tell you something about your 20s, about life through your decades. If you're in your 40, if you're 40, by the way, the camera's following me. This is great. And this is New Zealand behind me. If you're in your 20, if you're 40 and you do a Misogi every year, a big year defining thing, and you live to be 80, the average approximate lifespan of an American, that's 40 year defining things you have on your life resume. That's amazing. That you might not even have if you had on this call. If you didn't do this call, that's 40 year defining things that you're putting on in your photo album, talked about photo album, with last photo energy that you're putting on your life resume. That's amazing. So I have a Misogi. That's step one of my planning system. Step two is something that I have called Kevin's Rule. Kevin's Rule is very simple without getting into how it was created in the interest of time. Every other month on a weekend, I do something I normally wouldn't have done. So every other month, out of every 8 weeks, can I take 1 day, 1 or 2 days to do something I normally wouldn't have done? So instead of watching, I always use the example of watching the Georgia football game, maybe I'll take my kids fishing. Maybe I'll sign up for a 5K. Maybe I'll take a cooking class. Maybe I'll just watch a TED Talk that I really want to learn something about and go deep into something that I really wanted to learn. So basically, every other month, I do a mini adventure. Last year, it might be inviting my college friends up to my house for a dinner, something I normally wouldn't have done. It might be going to a concert or a sporting event, or going to Burning Man, or going to Running Man, or going to some kind of retreat, or going to a lecture series, or I can rattle off lists. But every other month, if I can't take 1 day out of 8 weeks, my work life is way out of whack. My work-life balance is way out of whack. So I do about 6 mini adventures out of 365 days a year. I take six for me to do something I normally wouldn't have done. Again, if you're 40 and you live to 80, 40 years, that's 240 mini adventures and 30 year defining Misogis. 40 and 240 mini adventures and 40 year defining things. You're building an incredible life. This has nothing to do with money. This has to do with this. This has to do with this. Saying, I want to do this and I'm going to do it. That's what this has to do. It's a commit. That's what New Zealand is about. It's making a commitment, not waiting for opportunity to come, but creating your own opportunity. So I make 6 mini adventures. So here's a little help, just to go a little bit deeper than we went on the last call. Here's a little bit of help on picking a Kevin's Rule. And by the way, you can put them in the chat room to help the group. If you had some Kevin's Rule trips last year and you were part of my community last year, put them in the chat. Every other month, Clay, every other month, you take 1 day of the weekend, 12-hour walk. That's an amazing thing. Skydiving, amazing thing. Help the buddy move across the country, amazing thing. Learn to snorkel. Day trips with my husband. Sign up for a 5K in the middle of winter. Hell on the Hill. Here we go. Here's some ideas for people. Trapeze classes. Here you go. Pottery making, surfing. I mean, the list goes on and on. So one way to help you pick a Kevin's Rule is to make a list of who do I want to spend time with? What do I want to learn? Where do I want to go? What races do I want to run? What do I want to get better at? Start to ask yourself, like I said, these questions, when I think about who do I want to spend time with? What do I love to do? What do I want to see? You know what comes up? Bike across the country. I want to do it with my friends. I've always wanted to see the country. I love to ride my bike. Like that's how these ideas come up, by thinking about them, and putting them on paper. Like, get to know yourself a little, like who haven't I seen in a long time? And like, since college, I don't see my college friends a lot. I'm out of college for what, 30 something years. We've grown apart. We live in different parts. I'm going to pull them together this year. I'm going to plan a dinner. I'm going to plan a reunion. That's a Kevin's rule. All right. So we have 1 year defining thing. We have 6 mini adventures. I can go into it a little deeper on this in the Q&A if you guys want to, on like how to pick a misogi. But really, when misogi is an anchor for the year, and you don't have to have it now. You have to just be aware. I'm thinking about it, man. Like, what do I want to do? Kevin's rule. So those 2 things are anchors in my planning system. The third thing I do is nothing to do with scheduling anything. It has to do with my habits. The third and fourth thing that I do. It's really a 4-step program. Misogi, Kevin's rule. Very simple. Anyone can do it. It's not stressing anybody out. All right. But it has a humongous impact at the end of the year. Every quarter, I try to add a winning habit, because we're all a product of our winning habits, winning routines, winning mindset, being around people with positive energy, with positive, with ideas that we can share like this. Every quarter, I try to add one winning habit that I didn't have. So that might be like, again, I'll use the examples I used last time. I don't drink enough water. I'm going to drink 100 ounces a day. I'm never going to be late to a meeting. I'm going to add a 10-minute a day meditation practice. So I've added 2 habits already this year. I usually try to do 1 a quarter, but these are habits that I have been able to keep. By the way, feel free to share any of your winning habits you would want to have in the chat room. Again, let's help each other get ideas. But this year already, I'm doing Wim Hof breathing. I haven't missed a day in the morning, first thing. And I do the All Day Running Company short workouts that are on the app that are free. And I've been doing them, haven't missed a day. Now, I've also gotten Sara into a great morning routine of breath work with me, and she does yoga. And all that required was her getting up about 15 minutes earlier. So I try to create, so at the end of the year, I'll have 4 winning habits. Now, if you just did those 3 things, you had a misogi, Kevin's rule, and you added 4 winning habits to your 2024 plan. By definition, if you did everything the same as you did in 2023, you're probably going to have a better year. You're going to show up to work happier. Like, man, you're going to be more interesting. When people are like, when people say to you, Erin Franklin, like Erin's going, she just did a cold plunge in the blah, 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 blah. Like, people are talking about it at work. They're going to say, Erin, how'd you do that? You're more interesting. You're showing up better. You have a calendar you're excited about. Like, man, I've got these 6 trips planned, and I got this big adventure that I'm doing, this misogi thing that this crazy guy, Jesse Itzler, told me about, man. Like, you just like, your calendar starts to light up. You show up differently. You're prioritizing yourself. You're prioritizing your family. You're prioritizing your health. You're prioritizing fixing the things that are broken. Like, you're showing up better. You're showing up with last photo energy, man. It just changes you. As opposed to, I don't know what I'm going to do this year. I don't know, same thing as last year. Now I'm 70. And I can't do the things I could have done looking at all your ages in your 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. Now I'm 70 and I can't take the trip to New Zealand. I can't do what so it's now. You never know when that last photo is going to be, man. You got to attack it like it's your last photo. So I have misogi, Kevin's rule. I have 4 winning habits that I add a year. I'm going to show you how to put it on your calendar in a second. And then the last thing that I do is not a planning tip, but it definitely helped. When I went to New Zealand, the day before I left for New Zealand, I had a lot to do. So I made a list the night before. Don't forget your passport. I need X amount. I need to bring money. I need to pack goggles. I don't want to forget my goggles. I got to go to the bank. I had this crazy list, man. It was like this. And I woke up the day before I went to New Zealand, and in 5 hours, I was more effective than I'd been the entire year. Literally, has that happened to you when you pack for a trip? Yes or no in the chat room. When you pack for a trip, before you go away on your trip, are you always like the most efficient you've ever been? Probably. Well, then I like to ask myself, why? Well, one, I had a list. I had a plan. I work better when I have a plan than when I don't have a plan. Two, I had a deadline. I work better when I have a deadline. Three, it mattered to me. I didn't have a choice. I had to get it done. Four, I had the pressure of the clock ticking. Pressure is a privilege. Entrepreneurs, we work for pressure. Pressure is behind pressure weeds people out. You sign up for pressure if you're an entrepreneur. I love pressure. Usually means that like the gold is behind the pressure. So anyway, well, why can't I do that every day? How come I have to take a trip to New Zealand to be that efficient? So what I like to do the night before I go to bed now is I make a list of the important things I have to get done the next day. And I just follow the script. No one here is good enough to just wake up and wing it, right? Like the competition's too good. The competition's got 3 or 4 assistants. We don't have 3 or 4 assistants. Make a list. What do I want to do tomorrow? You know, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do my all-day running workout. Then I'm going to go. I have this chat with this group. I'm going to do this quick call for 45 minutes. I follow the script. Follow the script. So my day starts the night before. So when you think about going into 2024, really just write down, man, like, what do I want to get done the next day? Do it every night before you go to bed. It takes 3 minutes. These aren't things that are like really hard to do. And they're not overwhelming. What? I'm going to have one big thing. I'm going to have a couple of little mini adventures, right? I'm going to add a habit a month. A quarter every 90 days. I'm going to make a list before I go to bed. I'm going to figure out what I want, what I have to fix. Like, these aren't hard things to do. They're fun things to do. Thank you, Sherry. They're fun things to do. There was one other thing I want to tell you guys. Oh, okay. So then how do I put this? How do I do this? How do I make this all make sense? Well, I have a big calendar. I don't have it with me in New Zealand, but I have a big calendar. You can use your calendar, your phone. If you have the big ass calendar, then you can see it all. That's what I like on one thing. So here's how I just put it all onto paper. So the first thing that I do is I put down everything that I already know is scheduled. So any weddings that I have, any races that I have, any trips that I have, anything that I already know. Again, this is my personal side, not my business. I put it down on my big ass calendar. Okay. If you don't have one of my big ass calendars, you can do it, you know, in your however you want to log it. Then when I know my Misogi, I put it down. So first, sporting events go down, races go down, kids events go down, weddings go down, any trips that I have go down, anything else that I know that I already know is in my personal stuff that I want on my calendar, I put it down. Then I layer in my Misogi, I layer in my Kevin's Rule trip in their own colors, and I have an unbelievable portfolio for the year. Already in January, I'm excited about 2024. I'm going to New Zealand. It's already happening. I'm going to Africa. I'm not saying that everyone's going to have a year of travel. It took me a long time to be able to do that. But I have races. I have bike rides that I'm excited about. I have get-togethers with my friends that I'm excited about. And I put it down on paper because now when things start showing up, I can say no. No, I can't do it that day. I'm taking my kids to the polar plunge. No, I can't do it that day. I have dinner with my college friends. You're taking control of your time, of your experiences, of your life. You're prioritizing you over your work. Now, work, as I said, is a completely different plan, but that's how I do it. It's super simple. In 45 minutes. In 45 minutes. So quick little recap. We're going into 2024 with last photo energy. We're showing up. We're being present, man. We're being aggressive in making things happen. All right. We're figuring out what it is we want, both this year through our Misogi, through our Kevin's Rule. This is And we're thinking about big picture, like, what do we want? I want an RV and I want a farm. Oh, I want to grow my own food. I want a swimming pool. I want to be able to take trips for 2 weeks. We're clear. We're getting excited about these things, man. Like, wow, this year I'm going to do it. You know, we have an effort list of those things that we want. By the way, now that I've accomplished my RV and a farm, nothing is popping into my head. I'm not forcing it, but I'm sure there'll be other things that are going to emerge that I want. Maybe it's, oh man, one day I want to have a place on the ocean. That would be incredible. I don't know, but I have these lists and I love it. So we know what we want. We know what we need to fix. We have a planning system that's very simple. It's a Misogi, right? The anchor for the year. We want it to be challenging. We want it to be something that we, on the other side, we feel accomplished about. We're proud of ourselves. So the one thing we all have in common is we want to feel proud of ourselves. We're here for different reasons. Some of us are 2s, some of us are 9s, but we all have the same thing. We want to feel proud of ourselves. So do things that make you accomplish. Schedule them. We're going to add, so we have a Misogi, Kevin's rule. We have our habits that we're going to add, winning habits every quarter. We're going to take notes every night. One more thing I want to add, and we're going to put it on the calendar. One more thing that I think is important. I mentioned that I do my breath work and my workouts in the mornings, right? I'm a big believer in momentum, early morning wins. And it could be simple wins, checking things off your to-do list. They say making your bed. For me, I like getting my runs done, check the box. Because I know if I do it in the morning, I don't have to worry. I already have a win. If the day gets taken away from me, I have one win in the morning. I made a list of, I did this on the last call. I made a list of, like, in a perfect day. Again, I'm a big list person. As you can see, I have lists everywhere. In a perfect day, what are the things you love to do? If time and money wasn't an issue during the day, mine is simple. Like, I love to sauna. I love to go for runs. I like to go for walks with Sarah. I love to play with my kids. I like to read. One of my things for this year is to read 50 books. I just finished my first book. Trying to read 50 books. I haven't read a book since, like, I'm 30. But this year I'm like, I'm an extremist, so I'm like, I'm going to read 50 books. I'm really, as I've gotten older, I really love to learn. I love to watch TED Talks. I love to read. I don't love to read, but I love to learn the benefit of reading. Anyway, those are things I love to do. So I made a list of all the things in a perfect day. I would take a sauna. I would go for a run. I would read a little. I'd play with my kids. I'd walk with Sarah. What are the things that you would like to do in a perfect day? Put it in the chat. What are the things that you love to do? Do you love to read? Do you love to, let me see it in the chat room. What are the things that in a day, sauna, meditate, run, read, work out, sleep in, walk, CrossFit, bike ride, hiking, gardening, playing outside, dancing, lifting weights, being with your kids, drinking coffee, alone time, baking, all these are great. Those are what I call your vitamins. When I was a kid, my mother used to always say, like, you got to take your vitamins, your daily vitamins every day to get your nutrients every day. Those are your nutrients. Those are the things that light you up. If Sarah were to take those away from me, if my boss were to take those away from me, I would resent them. If I can do those every day, I have a much better, I'm showing up better. So I made a list of, like, the 5 to 10 things I love to do, my vitamins, and every day I try to take 1 or 2 vitamins. Super simple. I try to take 1 or 2 things on that list every single day. When we hang up, I'm going to go for my run. That's going to be one of them. And I'm about to jump in that cold ass water. And that will be 2 of them. Whatever Sarah wants to do the rest of the day, I'm good, because I took my vitamins. I took care of me. So, oh, my pleasure, Kristen. My pleasure. Yeah, no, my pleasure. So every day I try to do those things. And that's it. Misogi, Kevin's rule, habits. Once a quarter, daily vitamins. I make my to-do list the night before, put it all down on my calendar, what I know now, in different colors. And I have an exciting, colorful year ahead of me that at the end of 2024, I feel proud of. I feel accomplished. I have a lot of new pictures that I can show to people, and I'm coming at it with last photo energy. All right. that's it for this. Let's open this up for some questions. I hope this was helpful. You know, it's hard. We have people from all different ages, people from all different, and there's no one size fits all. I'm just sharing what works for me, you know, and it's worked for me. It's not overwhelming. I think this applies to everybody here. I don't have my Misogi for 2024 yet. I have a couple of ideas, but I don't have the pressure, but I know I will have it. I think about it a lot. I'm aware of it. I'm going to review the chat and see if anything picks, you know, clicks and hits me here. So for those that are in the round table, which is my 12-month coaching program, thank you for being here. I'm excited to start the journey with you guys. The call formats will be very similar to this. There'll be, you know, live calls, different topics, a lot of business-driven topics. I wanted to start with planning because here we are in January. There'll be guest speakers. There'll be workshops on certain areas that I'm not great at. So there'll be a workshop, let's say, in how to write a book. Maybe I'll bring in a literary agent to talk about what do you want out of a literary agent for that. Maybe there's a workshop on how to give a TED Talk. I'll bring in a speech. So there'll be different workshops, 10 lectures from me, like this format. And then there'll be guest speakers as well. There's an app. I'll be sharing the best practices on our first call, which is on the 22nd of January. All the calls are recorded. So if you miss the live calls, you can just check them out in the app at any time. You'll have access for 12 months. You can review them like this at any time. Sutton, you could put the link in for anybody that's interested in the roundtable that's not in it. There's the link in the chat. You can scroll up and you can click on and their payment plans. So, yeah.
Jesse, we got some questions if you want to answer a few.
Let's do it.
So a lot of people want to know what some of your Misogis have been over the years. If you want to run through a few of those real quick.
Yeah, for me, I love endurance stuff, and so I've done Ultraman was my Misogi in 2022. I rode my bike across the country in 2023. I did Last Man Standing in 2021. I wrote a book in 2015, something that I always wanted to do, Living with the Seal. So it's been a variety of different things. I've seen people launch podcasts. I've seen people move, change careers. I mean, so many different things.
People also want
That's a good question. I'm sorry, Andy. I'm saying, someone asked, would you do a Misogi for business separate from personal? No, my business are just goals. I have business goals. Like I have revenue targets, I have launch dates, but Misogi to me is just personal. Those are just business goals. It's completely separate.
A lot of people want to know how you approach life through the decades. So 20s, 30s, 40s. People want to know how you break that stuff down. All
right, I'll answer that in a second. So someone asked me about best advice for someone leaving college today. I think a couple of things. I think one, if you're going into the workforce, and this goes for anybody that has a job that doesn't have their own business, I think it's important to try to make yourself irreplaceable at work. If you're if you're irreplaceable at work, someone that's just unfireable because you know so much, you have a great relationship maybe with the customers or whatever it is, then you have leverage. If not, your employer has leverage. They always have leverage, but make yourself irreplaceable, be 20s. I think it's a lot of people in their 20s lose their 20s trying to accelerate stuff. You're 20, be 20. Try new things. Go on adventures, figure out what you love to do, which will lead me to the decades. I think your 20s are a great time to say yes to things. You want to network, meet as many people as possible. The people in your 20s will be people in power in their 30s and 40s. I met Adam Silver in my 20s when he was working at the NBA and I was writing songs for NBA teams. He's now the commissioner of the NBA. I needed him to stamp my approval as an owner when I was going through a very hard process of ownership. So you never know. Your people in your 20s who are going to be the people in power when you're 40s and 50s. So your 20s, you want to meet everybody. You want to network. It's a time to say yes to things and to figure out what it is you like to do and what you're really good at. Your 30s are really a time to once you know what you like to do, is to master your craft. If whatever it is you do, you want to be as good as you can possibly be in it, and that's in your 30s. In your 40s, you monetize. You know, you figured out what you're good at. You know a lot of people. You've made mistakes. You'll make a lot more money in your 40s and 50s than you will in your 20s and 30s. I would say almost 4 to 10x in your 40s and 50s, because you know more, you've met more people, you're better at what you do, you know how to navigate, and there's shortcuts. So you really want to try to monetize in your 40s and 50s. Your 50s is a time to say no to more things and figure out what it is you love, who you love to be around. Maybe you have children at that point, maybe you have a partner. And you want to say yes to the things that move the needle in the most important buckets of your life. You want to put more on your plate of what you love to do with the people you love to do them with. You'll have more time to do that. The process to me is always the same. If you're 60 or 70 and you're a little bit older, it's still the same process of in your 20s. It's figure out what you love to do, get good at it, and monetize it. However, you just don't have as long a runway as you do in your 20s and 30s. But the process is always the same. Like, what do I love to do? What am I enthusiastic about and good at? And then monetizing it. And in your 20s, you have more time to figure that out, and you have a longer runway to monetize it. But things take time. And I think that, you know, when you guys see people posting things and planning things of their year, and they're like, oh man, Jesse's in New Zealand, and this guy's got a Rolls Royce, and this guy's business is overnight, he's doing $50 zillion. That's their story. This is my story, man. It's not your story, okay? And it took me a long time to get there. Don't get caught up in other people's stuff. Who knows what's behind the scenes with that person? Who knows what they're going through? Who knows? I have friends that did that. They're in jail. Who knows the route they took to get there? Worry about your story. Take your time and map out a year and a business that feels good for you on your pace. And celebrate those people. Good for them. If you root for everybody, you can't lose. Let me tell you guys a quick story real quick. I was out the other day on this jet boat with my kids on this, like, it's like this crazy fast boat in New Zealand, going through the wilderness in this river, and on these boats go really like NASCAR cars. You're like strapped in and flying. And Tepper, my daughter, was, and then the guy on the river would do like these 360 donuts, and he would go like this and give us a warning. And the kids love it. And okay, John did it. And no problem if you guys gotta jump off. Totally cool. I'm gonna stay on for a little while, but if you have to jump, that's fine. I'm happy to answer questions. No one's up here. The guy was doing donuts, and Tepper started crying, and she was freaking out. And she made me tell the guy to promise that he wouldn't do any more donuts. Well, my boys, who are a little bit older, 3 boys, they wanted to do the donuts. So by Tepper saying, I'm not going to do the donuts, it was impacting the experience that my boys were having on the trip. Tepper was petrified. So I tell the guy, I asked the driver, no more donuts, no more donuts. Sarah has a conversation with Tepper. Now we head back towards the hotel we're at. And Sarah had convinced Tepper to allow the boat driver, despite her fear. Sarah said, Tepper, you pick the number of donuts we can do on the way home. She was like, it's 0. But so Tepper's like 1.5. And we did 1. And then she said, I'll do 3 or 4 more. So we do 3 or 4 more, despite her fear. So here's the takeaway. This isn't a story of Tepper overcoming her fear. This is a story of Tepper deciding that it was more important for her brothers to enjoy the experience than for her to go through the fear of the donut. She put her brothers first so they could have the thrill of what they wanted over her fear. So, which is very rare, very rare. So what I'm saying is, when you root for everybody, when you're helping, when that's where you're coming from, a place of like, good for them, or I'm going to let these people enjoy it. You can't lose. You can't lose. So That's what I'm talking about, man. It's their story. Let them, you know what I mean? Like, good for them. Let's focus on what we have to do. All right, Andrew, fire some questions.
Yeah, so we had another question about balancing multiple different big goals. Like, do you consider them both to be misogis if you're doing something that's physical and something maybe it's a business goal? How do you approach that?
Yeah, see, I think that's the biggest problem that people make is they have too many goals, too many businesses. In business, it's hard enough to build one. I remember my mentor telling me it's hard enough to build one brand in the United States of America, let alone multiple brands at the same time. To me, it's the same thing with goals. It's like people make the mistake of having so many goals, and maybe they accomplish them, but maybe they don't accomplish them as good as they would have if they just had one. Look at Sara, one thing, Spanx, single focus. I had Marquis Jet, other businesses, and they were successful, but maybe they would have been more successful if I only did one thing at a time. I'm a big believer, Andrew, that more isn't better, better's better. When it comes to goals, more isn't better, better's better. Have like a really good goal that you want to do it really, really well, and move on. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to write a book, and you can't write a book, run a marathon, and launch a podcast at the same time and expect all three to be great. You know? So, for me, when I pick a mentor, Liz, does that make sense? More being better. I mean, better being better. More isn't better, better's better. And I think so I don't juggle a lot of different goals. I used to do that. Warren Buffett had a great thing. He's like, put 20 goals on a piece of paper and then wake up the next day and narrow them down to 5 and throw out the other 15 and then only pick you really want to get really lean on those goals. And you're not going to miss it if you do one thing really, really well. You can always go back to picking up other goals. I've learned that the hard way, like of just trying to do too much. Now, if you can outsource things and you have the ability to have a team that can execute on multiple things in business or in your personal life, that might change the dynamic a little bit. But yeah, the question here is, have you ever been in a situation where money was tight and you felt like you couldn't pursue your dream due to finances? Yeah, I mean, I've been in that situation a lot of times. Sometimes I put those dreams on hold. Sometimes I try to exhaust every option and resource I have to get a solution for that. Whether that's raising money, maybe borrowing money, maybe pivoting, look, Sara started Spanx with $5,000. She had a very simple model. Make it, sell it, make it, sell it, make it, sell it. Make 20 units of Spanx, sell it. Take the money, buy more inventory, sell it. But she didn't start by saying, my dream is to have $1 billion company and get $1 billion worth of inventory. She started with one pair of Spanx. She sold it, took the money and bought more. Took the money, sold it, bought more. So, I mean, you start small, you think really big, and then when you get momentum, you scale it fast. This is the kind of stuff. By the way, that's what I'm loving about the roundtable. For the roundtable members, and by the way, if you're not a member, I'd love to have you in this program. I think I've super proud of it. Hey, sweetie, my wife's up. Are you gonna breathe and do your yoga today? She's gonna breathe and do her yoga today. Say hi, Sara. Hi, everybody. Here. I got a group on, several hundred people.
Wow, I just woke up. Hi, guys.
So this is the chat room here. Okay. I can see what people are saying.
Hey.
Can you just tell people really quickly about what you were saying when I didn't want to go on the helicopter yesterday?
Yeah.
How sick was the helicopter
ride?
The
helicopter or the hiking?
All of it. Sara took me on something yesterday.
Did the most
I'm so glad that I'm
rock climbing.
That I'm on solid ground right now.
We did the most intense rock climbing. Jesse's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I don't understand why we would do that. I don't want to risk my life. I said, honey, I follow a guy on Instagram who's always telling me to get outside of my comfort zone. I said, we got to go do it. This is getting out of your comfort zone. And guess what, guys? He did it. He got out of his comfort zone, and he was way, way out of his comfort zone.
I feel really good about it, though. Do you?
I feel great about it.
Yeah.
And our kids did it, and they felt great about it. I mean, I made sure it was super safe, but
Super safe.
there was human error that could happen, which is a little scary with 9-year-olds. Hi, everyone.
We went on this rock climbing adventure yesterday where we had to learn, which by the way, I love learning, so I love this, but you had to clip in 2 points of contact. But anyway, they took us up 600 feet on a cliff, and we walked all the way across with my kids. It was safe, but my legs were shaking like this, and I was worrying about oh my God. All right, I got time for one more. Let's take one more, Ander.
All right, last question.
By the way, New Zealand's out of control nice. If anyone ever has a chance to go to New Zealand, I don't love traveling, but it's spectacular in New Zealand. Spectacular. All right. Any other questions? We got time for one more.
So we got a lot of questions. So if you guys didn't get your questions answered, keep in mind we're going to go
Libby.
in depth in a lot of these over the course of the roundtable program. So join if you're interested. But last question: how do you balance everything that you do with 4 kids?
Well, one is we schedule a lot of stuff in advance. So one thing that I did, and Sarah's doing it this year too, is I'll talk about balance in a second, but I really encourage people as parents, as their kids get older, if you can, to take one-on-one trips with your kids. I took my son to Washington, D.C. last year, and it was just an amazing memory for him, an amazing memory for me. You get to learn a lot about your kids when they're outside of their normal environment, even around brothers and sisters. So as a parent, just to have that one-on-one time to see how my son reacted, checking into hotel, all that stuff was amazing. We try to have a lot of family dinners. That's something that Sarah's put her foot down on, and it's been a great thing for us. As much as we can. We can't do it all the time with our schedules. Try to go to all the events, all the sporting events. I mean, I think both Sarah and I really have an appreciation and realize, like, again, last photo energy of just how fast everything's going. So part of the reason of taking this trip, it's amazing to be in New Zealand. It's just better to have the time with our family together, like with very little distractions. But look, I work really hard. But when I shut down, I shut down. So the answer to the question is when I shut it down at the end of the day, usually for me, that's around 4:00 when my kids get home. I get to go outside and play a little with them, and I'm with them, and that's really important. Not all over the place and just like trying to be where my feet are as much as I can. Last photo. I like that last photo energy, by the way. It just came out of my mouth. I like it. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, listen, I'm going to start my day here. Check this out. This is crazy. I don't want you guys to see this. Check this out real quick. Take you guys outside. Is that crazy? New Zealand is bonkers, man. There's only 5 million people in New Zealand, and there's only 5 million people in New Zealand. So you have, a lot of, that's not a lot at all. It's an amazing country, super beautiful. The water's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm so glad we did it. So anyway, thank you guys. Have a great day. I hope this was helpful. And for the roundtable people, I'll see you on the 22nd. And anybody here that wants to join the roundtable, maybe we could throw up the link one more time. But yeah. And if you guys post anything from this, which is totally fine, on Instagram, just tag me. I love to just get feedback. I'm going to read this whole chat after. I always have my team send me the chat, and so I can just review the comments and see where I can get better. And again, just trying to give everyone some tips for 2024. If there's one or two things here that resonated, then it was worth the hour. So thank you guys, and thank you to my team, and we'll see everybody on the 22nd.